This video is sponsored by Surfshark, the best VPN on the market. Surfshark is an app or browser extension that allows you to change your location to access websites in other countries and keep you safe from hackers. For example, we here in Ireland can access other countries' Netflix libraries, streaming services such as DAZN in Spain for those all-important Premier League games. Surfshark keeps you safe and private by protecting everything you do online. When your device connects to the internet, all that information is, in a way, blurred out. Surfshark is particularly useful for keeping you safe if you use public Wi-Fi, such as a college or a cafe. Surfshark allows you to use one subscription on unlimited devices, meaning that you can even share an account with friends and family. On top of this, Surfshark offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, so if you don't like it, you can even get your money back. Our sign-up offer gives you Surfshark VPN for just over €2 per month and up to 4 months free. Why not scan the QR code on screen or use the link in the description to take advantage of this offer. What is up, my friends? How are we? It is Sunday night and you are very welcome along to tonight's late night agenda. Well, we know what Arsenal did. They got their win today. They did it at the death, but hey, look, we've done that plenty of times as well. So, pressure's on now. Arna and the boys have to respond after yesterday's loss against Crystal Palace. We need to make sure that we go to Stamford Bridge and get the 3 points next week. Yes, we can say we've lost one game. That is more than fair. But we got to get the performance levels up and get back to winning ways. Big week ahead. We know it's the international break coming up after next Saturday for us, next Sunday in general. And we don't want to be going into that international break not top of the Premier League. It is in our hands to make sure that that isn't the case. So we got to make sure and we go and win that game. It's not going to be easy. But look, Chelsea aren't in a great moment either. We're going to give you some words tonight from our captain, Virgil van Dijk. We'll talk you through, well, the bones of what happened yesterday. We'll give you Mika Richards' take on Ibrahim Konate and his jitteriness at the heart of the Liverpool defence. But as always, it is your show, so you let me know what you'd like to discuss. Sean Lester, welcome to Anfield Agenda FC, my man. Appreciate you renewing that membership or becoming a member just before we went live. So, ladies and gentlemen, how are we? Dublin the Desert, how are you, bro? Said good evening, Craig. Let's pull back on not picking at the team. Let's pull back on not picking at the team. I don't know what you mean by that. So you want us to pick at the team? Or did you mean, I'm not trying to be an asshole. I'm genuinely confused. I'm not picking on the team myself, mate, but, you know, we lost. So we got to address that and make sure that we learn from it. Palace are no mugs. They're a good side and they deserve to win that game, like I've said many times. But, yeah, it's nervy. You know, it is early days in the season and there is a lot of football still to be played, but we don't want to be giving Arsenal any encouragement. So yeah, that's my point. We need to make sure that we keep things in our hands and don't give the chase and pack encouragement. Of course, this weekend, it was a big swing, right? We could have had a point at Crystal Palace. We lost at the death. Look, it happens the other way around a lot as well. And then Arsenal today, 1-0 down, turned it around with a late winner against Newcastle. So title chases, title form can swing on a pendulum very quickly. Stevie Boy said, explain the handball rule, please. How Newcastle didn't get that decision is mind-blowing. So one thing that I've said multiple times across the last couple of years, Stevie Boy, is I'm watching football now 36, 37 years. I'd like to think I know the rules, but sometimes, like I say, around the handball, I haven't got a clue. So there's two things, I guess, to look at with that handball situation today. It did come up off the player's shin. So when they did challenge, it did come up and then hit. Was it Gabriel? I can't remember which Arsenal player it was. It did come up and hit his arm. But I guess the prerequisite is that it did ricochet up and hit the arm. So I understand that part of the process. I really do. If it does ricochet up, hits an arm, whatever. But it's the fact that it still blocked the cross that kind of winds you up a little bit, right? I'm not trying to say Arsenal got a dodgy decision or anything like it. The rules are the rules. So, but yeah, it just felt a bit weird when the arm was so far up that, okay, maybe it wasn't a penalty decision, but it was definitely blocking the cross into the penalty area, and he did so with the hand. But look, man, the rules are the rules, and I'd rather we focus on what we do and what we can do than start going down the route of, you know, blaming everybody else or conspiracies or whatever. And again, I'm not saying that you're doing that, but we just need to keep doing what we can, which is winning our games of football. And yeah, moments like that, the swings in the season that can define the season, Arsenal, to be fair to them, they showed great courage to come back from 1-0 down to go and win that game 2-1. It was a question asked of them, and they answered it. So we need to respond with a little bit of a good form ourselves. The legend said, I'm buzzing, that game raised my blood pressure. It's a lovely feeling, isn't it, mate, to win late. We've done it a few times this season, and you're one of the Arsenal fans that always comes in and shows good grace with us, so I will treat you exactly the same. Yeah, look, it is. There's something special about winning a game late. Like I said, we've done it a few times this season, and I certainly know how much I enjoyed it, so I have no doubt that you guys did as well, because if you didn't, if you drew or lost that game, it would have felt like a missed opportunity. So as a Liverpool fan, it's gutting for me, because I thought, all right, maybe we get away with it this weekend, and maybe the fact that we lost yesterday, if Arsenal only drew with Newcastle, you're thinking, okay, that's not too bad this weekend. But you found the winner, in fairness, and now my boys have to make sure that we react this week and put it right. So on the penalty incident, look, I do get it, but like I said, the rule is if it ricochets up or if it comes off the defending player first and hits the arm, it's not a penalty. This is probably going to be one of the more extreme versions of that type of situation, but yeah, it is what it is, I guess. Ultimately, Nick Pope and his stupid clearance, which led to the corner that Arsenal scored and won the game from, that's kind of where Newcastle fans' frustration should be, because that was silliness. Him rushing through, trying to counter-attack, a bit of naivety, and Newcastle lost the game because of it. And also, the defending and the corner was nuts. One thing that stood out to me, though, and again, I'm not trying to say that rules were broken or anything like that, but if you look at Saliba on the Newcastle goal they conceded to lose it, his job there was bluntly just to stand in front and block the goalkeeper. Didn't want to play the ball, didn't try to play the ball, just stood in front of Nick Pope, making sure Nick Pope couldn't move forwards or any which way. But there's another way to think about this. Sometimes we need to be a little more able to use the dark arts. Sometimes we need a little bit of shithousery. So, look, it's a title race. There's going to be twists and turns. And this weekend was certainly one in Arsenal's favour and against us. But like I keep saying, it is in our hands, and we need to make sure we keep it that way. Very fair, Craig. Arsenal look a very strong side and have the strongest squad. Look, they showed something today. Question was asked of them, could they go to Newcastle and win? We did it, and then they went and won it late. So, they've got their title credentials. And I'm not a hater. Like I say, I always try to call things fairly and as I see them. In the heat of the moment, was I disappointed that Arsenal won it? Of course I was. I was sitting at home screaming at the television. But, it's football. That's how things happen. You're being tested for prostate cancer. Well, I hope you get... I was going to say a positive result, but you know what I mean? I hope it comes back negative, sir, and that it's something else, but we're thinking of you, bro, and I'm sure you're a very worried man right now. So, yeah, wishing you all the best, man. Really, really wishing you the best, Sean. Craig, what the hell was Pope at the end? Should have been off filming. Hope you're well. I don't know what he was doing, mate. I don't know. That clearance from his that led to the Arsenal corner was just all kinds of stupid. If there's one thing you don't want to be doing late against Arsenal, it's giving them set pieces, right? Because we know how capable they are from set pieces. And even though Gabriel was surrounded by, I think, 3 or 4 Newcastle players, he still out-muscled them, still out-powered them, found a header and scored. But yeah, Nick Pope was just... if I'm a Newcastle fan, I'm raging at Nick Pope for the end of that game. Despite the many great saves he made, we kind of undermined a lot of it with the last couple of minutes. Right, where are we at? Right, let's go through some of what Virgil has had to say, because I like what he said, but, again, I need action here as a Liverpool fan and not words. He said, when you can do better, and everyone knew that. We're disappointed in our performance, disappointed in the loss, especially the way we went about it. I think if we got a draw, then we would have already had 1 point too many. And look, that's probably fair as well. Palace were the better side yesterday. They deserve the win. It's just one though. Like we've said, we've played, what is it, 8 games of football this season now. Won 7 of them and lost 1. It's not the end of the world, but what I do find interesting is I was looking at the games coming up. Arsenal's next 5 or 6 and our next 5 or 6. They have what you would consider fairly winnable games. So it is going to be a big Saturday night next week. Because I tell you what, I don't want to go on my holiday and into the international break not top of the league. You know, that will haunt me for the entire 2 weeks we're away. So we got to make sure, for my selfish reasons and of course for the club's reasons, that we go to Stamford Bridge next week and win. No draws, win. Chelsea have no Cole Palmer. They look a little bit all over the shop, but make no mistake about it, they're going to be up for it. Their manager is going to be up for it because they lost a silly game against Brighton that was 1-1 at one point. They lost it 3-1 late. They got themselves a red card as well. So they're going to be, I'm sure, up for the battle next Saturday. The preview, by the way, believe it or not, is already going to come out for the Galatasaray game. I recorded that earlier on today. That is going to come out tonight. I think Connor has it scheduled to come out at 10:30. So keep an eye out for that one later on. And look, I'm not going to lie to you. I made a lot of changes in that team. And I changed up what I normally do. Normally, I go with what I think Arna would go with. This week, I wanted to make a point. So I made the team that I would pick if I was in charge. And the team has some big name players dropped in it for various reasons. Form being a big part of it. But also because we have a big game next Saturday coming up. And to me, that's the more important of these 2 fixtures. Whatever we do, I'm sure we can go over to Galatasaray and get a result, whether it be a draw or a win. But Saturday, that has major significance in the title race for me already at this early stage. So watching Match of the Day last night, I know. I thought I'd torture myself by watching Match of the Day. So I turned it on because I was interested to see if they said anything about our defending and the way that we played. And sure enough, in fairness, Mika Richards did. He said that watching Canade this season, he said he feels jittery and he doesn't look right. And I was relieved because we often fear that, like, we say this, but are we being too led by emotion because of the contract situation? So to hear a football pundit say what we've all been thinking, it was refreshing because Canade was so far off it, so far off it, that I don't know what to think anymore. I thought he turned the corner. You know, we had a shaky opening 2 games. Thought he turned the corner, but, you know, that performance after a couple of decent ones in a row was just Dejan Lovren-esque at Wembley levels, like really, really poor. So, what do we do? The only option we have, as we know, is to either play Joe Gomez at centre-back, continue with Canade, or shoehorn somebody in there that shouldn't be in there. So let me know what you guys would do at centre-back against Galatasaray. Would you... Actually, do you know what? I'm going to ask as a poll. Let me just get the first poll of the night. So... So I'm going to ask, who should partner VVD on Tuesday? Canade or Gomez? So that's the first poll. Who should partner Virgil van Dijk on Tuesday over Galatasaray? Will it be Joe Gomez or stick with Ibrahim Canade? I know there may be people that don't want either. I might want to go with something else, but realistically, I think they are the only real options. Richie said, Craig, what the hell was Pope at the end? Gabriel should have been sent off for film. I hope you're well. Gabriel is a shithouse. We know that. But Newcastle should be quite disappointed with letting those points go. Whatever about getting pegged back to a draw, you know, to throw it away. They've had a really poor start to the season, and Voltmada on the score sheet for them put them ahead. And look, I only caught the second half of the game, so from what I understand, Arsenal were by far the better team in the first 45, but we're just not taking chances. So, you know, we went to Newcastle and won, and I was genuinely intrigued. Like I said all week, not going to be an easy game for Arsenal, but they did what they probably wouldn't have done last year, which is find that late winner. I want to bring you to a story from Christian Falk, and he said Liverpool are continuing to explore a move to sign Bayern Munich defender Dayot Upamecano on a free transfer next summer. What are we saying on this? You know, we had a conversation the other day and I asked, would you be happy with signing Upamecano to replace Canade? And most people said no. But if it was a January thing and it was Mark Gay coming in lately next summer, what do you think about that one? You know, would you take Dayot Upamecano for a fee, let's say, in January if Bayern were willing to sell, and then get Mark Gay on a free at the end of the year as well? Or what do you think is likely to happen? Because it is... How do I say this? I'm concerned, but I think I have reason to be. So I'm not just reacting to the loss yesterday, and I don't think many of you guys would be either, because the loss was fair enough. We didn't deserve to win. But we do know that we haven't performed well this season. So we were in a somewhat fortunate position to have won the games. Now look, it takes bottle to go and win games late, and we deserve credit for that. But like we spoke about all week in the build-up and on the shows we've done, the podcasts we've done, we spoke about performances. We spoke about making it look like this team is starting to knit together. And we haven't really seen much of that yet. So are we right to be concerned, or are we just overreacting? Let me know what you're thinking on that, because I don't feel like I'm overreacting. I think I'm being sensible. For me to come on and say everything's great would be a lie. You know, I've no fears that it will work, it will click, it will come together. But we're now 8 games into a season. I'd like to see it start to happen soon. You know, PSG is a good example, as somebody pointed out to me the other day. They had a very shaky start under Enrique, and then it turned around, it clicked, and then they just became this machine. Possible for us to do the same, but, you know, those signings are going to have to start stepping up. Wirtz in particular, he's going to have to up his game a bit. Difficult to really judge what's happening so far with Isak, because of course he's only in the door. He's already off and got his first goal. That's great. Ekitike coming back in, that will help us out a lot. It'll give Arnott another option. But defensively, we need to figure things out, because we cannot be conceding as many sloppy, silly goals as we are. Craig put Robbo at centre-back, Houlden with job. Well, so there's 2 things about that, Richie, right? One, it removes our aerial dominance, and that's important in the way that we defend. Robbo is not as good aerially as any of the other 3 actual centre-backs that we have. Gomez probably would lag a little bit behind VVD and Canade anyway, but still better. And I'm going to be playing him at left-back, mate, Robbo, in my team against Galatasaray. But like I keep saying, I don't really like the idea of shoehorning players in. And I know Robbo's played there for his country, but he's not a centre-back. He's not fast enough to play a high line. He's not tall enough to be defensively aerially dominant. So that would concern me. Kevin Pell put Szoboszlai centre-back and put Wirtz in the middle. Same problem, Kelvin. You know, we need to remember what we ask of our centre-backs. And when we take from one area of the pitch to put somebody into centre-back, we're losing something somewhere else. So Dominic Szoboszlai at right-back, that's an interesting experiment for a couple of reasons. One, because we know we can do a good job there. We've seen it. And 2, it allows Arna to have other options in midfield, if he'd like, and still have Szoboszlai on the pitch. So I think you're going to be really, really, really... I don't know if the word is surprised or upset at me for the team that I've gone with for the game against Galatasaray. I've dropped some big players in it. And, you know, I can imagine the comments on it aren't going to be great. Hi Craig and everybody, hope you're well today, Michael. We need to invest in a very good centre-back, not a cheap alternative in January window. I agree, mate. I do agree. Now look, we may be out of the control of the situation with Mark Gay. That may have to wait till the end of the season. And I don't know, but we may have to wait. But I agree with you. This cannot be a case of we'll watch and monitor. I'm hoping that behind the scenes right now, Richard Hughes is working to get a centre-back in for the first day the window opens. You know, there's a story that you won't actually believe. And I couldn't believe it when it was sent to me. And it comes from Calcio Mercado. I don't even need to ask you if you think there's any truth to this, because it's just so ridiculous. So this piece here said that AC Milan are interested in signing Liverpool's Joe Gomez and are considering a move in January. There isn't a world where Liverpool are selling a centre-back in January. Look, we know about Milan's interest because they tried to get him late in the window. But with the injury to Giovanni Leone ruling him out for the season and Canade's form being shaky, there's just no world that Liverpool consider selling Joe Gomez in January. At the end of next season, I actually do expect Joe to move on. And that's why I'm fine and hoping we go and buy a centre-back in January. As our friend said a moment ago, Michael, a here and now centre-back. Because then, at the end of the season, if we lose Canade, which it looks like we will, that's one thing. We could then afford to move on Joe Gomez, and you'd still have Van Dijk, Leone coming back, hopefully Mark Gay, and whoever the centre-back we brought in January is. Wouldn't it be better for us right now to have one too many than one too few? So let's wait and see what the club are going to do. But I'm more concerned with the form and the way we play than the centre-back situation, because we aren't playing with a strut. We aren't playing with a swagger. We aren't moving the ball quick enough. The intensity levels haven't been right. And certain players need to be held to account. One of those, Mo, it's not easy to have that conversation as a Liverpool fan because we all love the man to bits. But ultimately, it's an important message that the manager has to set the tone that nobody is beyond reproach. Nobody is beyond being benched if they aren't performing. And no matter what Arna or anybody else tries to say, right now Mo isn't performing. And not only is he not performing, but we know that in his new role and with his new contract, that there is less defensive work to be done from Mo because it's part of the trade-off for when the player gets a bit older. Keep his energy levels, maximise the input when he has the ball. So we're losing something defensively there as well, which is why I made quite a big change in my preview team because I had that in mind when I was thinking about the game. Charlie said, would rather Georgie Mamadashvili at centre-back than Upamecano. I really, really just don't want Upamecano, mate. Like, I have no interest in Liverpool signing him. And it would worry me if we thought he was good enough to bring in. Even on a free transfer, it would worry me because I don't rate him that much. Tipsy Dipsy said, problem we have is we could have easily have drawn or lost our first 5 games. And do you think, Craig, that Klopp's system would have suited the new boys more? I guess the Klopp thing I haven't really given much thought to because it's kind of a moot point, It's not going to change where we are now. But you're absolutely right about the first 5 games. They could have gone either way. The Bournemouth game, I feel like even though they did peg us back to 2-2, I felt like that was always going to be a win. But other ones, Burnley, late penalty, luck, let's be honest, that was luck. Newcastle took a very good moment from Dom and from young Rio Engamoa to win that game after again going 2-0 up and then against 10 men. So yeah, you're right. There could have been points dropped earlier in the season. And that result yesterday was one that we probably would agree was coming. Trayvon Reed said, sadly, Conor Bradley isn't good enough. Well, what I would say about Conor Bradley, Trayvon, is he's young enough that I wouldn't make a definitive decision yet. He's certainly, there's almost a trade-off between Frimpong and Bradley when you play them. I do think Bradley is a bit more combative and a better defender than Frimpong, but Frimpong has that lightning pace to get up and down that right-hand side. So I would say I understand where you're coming from on Bradley, but he is still young and he does still have some development in him. But right now at right back, there's a question mark, a fairly big question mark, and that I think, Trayvon, is fair enough of you to say. Terry Ryan, how are we, Terry? Said, I know the defence is very shaky at the moment, but the midfield are shocking, seeing all 8 games and they are sloppy with the ball. Yeah, the midfield hasn't been what we would expect with the quality that's in there. McAllister feels like he's playing catch-up. Szoboszlai gets a pass because he's been utilised in other areas as well. Gravenberch's the interesting one for me because we heard Ryan Gravenberch say that the manager has told him and given him license to get a bit further forward this season. So is there a coincidence that he has that bit more license and that we're looking a bit more vulnerable defensively? I think they have to be linked somehow. It's a tough one because Ryan's playing really well and is a great, great footballer. But the role of a number 6 or a sitting deep midfielder has to be, first and foremost, to protect the back four. And if we're not doing that, I think we need to drop him back a little bit again and sacrifice a bit more forward-thinking play from him to make sure we can get that defensive stability. David, Rob, how are we, David? And thank you for your super chat, my friend. Said, you're right on Mo, reputations don't win games. They don't. Look, reputations might put fear into some players, but I guess the tough question, David, is how long do you persist with a player who you know has magic and has been absolutely incredible? How long do you keep saying, well, I'm going to leave him on. He might have that moment. I'm going to leave him on. He might do that thing that changes the game. I'm kind of at the point now where I'm thinking, well, it's time to start holding him to account for performances because he's not being good enough. And I like I keep saying, it's an important message to send into the dressing room as well, that even the greats, even the leaders, if they're not performing, they're not guaranteed to be playing. I think that's important for a manager to do. Joseph, I feel like people are a bit harsh on Arne about his style. Saying he doesn't have one is moronic. Just look at the season. Not a dig at you though, Craig. I think, look, it's hard for me to defend other people's takes because, I don't see a lot of social media stuff. But what I would say, Joseph, and I think a lot of people may agree with this, it's difficult to nail down the style. It's difficult to see the progression with the style. Like, when I seen we were bringing in Wirtz and we were bringing in Isak and we were bringing in Ekitike and we were bringing in Frimpong and we were bringing in Kirkes, my mind thought, right, here we go. We're going to be PSG. We're going to have two wing-backs who are holding high up the pitch, using the width and just penning teams in, just not letting them get out and forcing them, if they want to get out, to just play a long ball, which we'll deal with and start another attack. So I want the wing-backs further up, pressurising. I want the number 6 dropping back to sit in between the two centre-backs. I want the forwards and the midfielders pressing like hell and being machines and quality. And I don't think when you'd seen Wirtz coming in and Kirkes and Frimpong, I think that's what we expected as fans. We expected this high energy, high press, high attack style of football. And what we've seen instead is a halfway house with the fullbacks where Arne doesn't seem to trust them yet to do the job that I think they were brought in for. Now, I have to say think because, of course, I ain't in the dressing room. But we definitely haven't seen the creativity. We definitely haven't seen the ability to still unpick that lock. We haven't seen Wirtz turn the corner yet. So there are still things that I think I have questions about Arne's style of way, particularly after the style of players he brought in. I'm still trying to figure out what the thinking was there, if it wasn't to go down that PSG route. Wayne said, Canade rest on Tuesday until Saturday with Ekitike to start in the away game against Galatasaray. So the Canade situation is a tough one for two reasons, Wayne. Firstly, the other option that we have at centre-back didn't exactly pull up any trees when he played in the League Cup game against Southampton. But I guess the question you'd have to ask is, was that down to a lack of rhythm, a lack of game time, or a more worrying thing of maybe, Joe just isn't the player he once was? I think with just one game as a sample size, it's impossible to give that answer. So it may come down to what Arne sees on the training ground. But I keep coming back to the commitment from Canade to the contract. If that commitment isn't there, that he wants to stay, I think we're concerned for the season. And it's not just us fans. It's not just me and you sitting here talking about Canade. Like I said, match of the day, we're talking about it. I've talked to my other friends who watch football and they think the same thing. Like, Canade just looks off it. Half the games this season he hasn't played good enough in. That's not great. Like, and I'm being fair when I say half the league games. 3 he played okay and well, and 3 he played poorly. That's not great. Elliot said, "We look like a team of individuals. It reminds me of Real Madrid or PSG with Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe." So somebody said something to me, Elliot, in a watch along recently that has stuck with me ever since they said it. I think it was sorry, I'll think of who it was in a second. But the point they made was that we can't carry 2 players in the team. We can't have 2 players that don't have the defensive responsibilities of the others. And they were right. And we seem to be doing that at the minute. 2 players are not pulling their weight. And you can have one like a Wirtz who, is in attacking mode, finding its place, bit of a free range, bit of a free roaming player. But we need to start helping out the right back more and more and more. And that's why I'll give you one position I've changed for the preview, because of course I do want you to watch it. I've dropped Salah and put Frimpong on the right. And the reason I've done that is twofold. It was Eddie, actually. Eddie. Shout out to Eddie, who said it about only having one player. The reason that I put Frimpong at right wing in my team is 1, to help out the right back. 2, to give us a different look at going around the outside maybe. His engine will be good enough and his pace will be good enough to get up and down that right flank. And also, it gives us a look when Salah's away of what we may expect. And I'd rather try that in an away game in the Champions League against a mid-team like Galatasaray than do it, let's say, next Saturday against Chelsea. So, do I think Arnott is going to drop Mo? No, not for 1 second, but he should. And I think most people would agree with that. Again, not saying you'd agree with me putting Frimpong there, but I'm saying I think most people would agree that Mo's probably due a reminder that the performances aren't there. Matthew said, "I think people are underrating Upamecano a little bit. Bayern fans rate him extremely highly. Great for France too. That City game has done irreparable damage to his reputation, just my opinion." Look, nothing wrong with that, Matthew. We're all entitled to our opinions, mate. And, I would be the first to tell you, Matthew, I don't watch Bundesliga week in or week out. So I am working with highlights and a few little times I've seen Upamecano play. But I do stand over the point that I always made, that when those 2 players left RB Leipzig, I felt we got the better of the 2 centre-backs when we got Kanade versus Upamecano. And in a world where we're maybe bringing in Mark A, but with what would be a free transfer next summer, I don't like the idea of the 2 new centre-backs we bring in both being free transfers, because I feel like we're going down that Real Madrid route then of this is an opportunity, but we probably weren't willing to go and buy Upamecano. He wouldn't have been in our thinking for a 40, 50, 60, 70 million pound move. So I'm okay with Mark A because we know what we're getting there. And on a free, that's good. But I would like us to go out and invest in the other one if we have to in January. Matt Gorman, how are you, Matt? Said, "One thing for sure, we have to go back for Gay in January. And if Salah isn't prepared to track back and just wants a free roll, he needs dropping." To be fair, I don't think, Matt, that's necessarily on Salah. I think that was just an agreement between him and Arna to try and keep him as match fit and as fresh as possible. So I think that trade-off was a pre-agreed thing. But now it's looking like it's hindering us somewhat because we're not getting the best of Mo. The not asking him to do as much defensive work. Well, we're not seeing the benefit of that in his performances, so now it's hurting us in 2 ways. At least that's how I see it. And again, it's so difficult. I really, really struggle when we have these conversations with Mo because you got to strike the balance of respect that he's damn well earned versus realism, and I just don't think he's pulling up any trees at the minute. I thought you had watched Wirtz extensively in Germany, said Danny, trying to troll me, JBR88. Right, and what has that got to do with a Bayern Munich player, mate? So whether I watch Leverkusen or not, what the fuck has that got to do with me watching Bayern Munich? If you're going to troll me, mate, at least try to have some level of ability or common sense. I did watch Wirtz because I was watching Leverkusen for a whole host of reasons. seen them in the Champions League, watching them because Alonso was there, watching the style of play. Is that so hard to believe? But I don't tune into Bayern Munich because I don't have a reason to tune into Bayern Munich. Not that hard to figure out, bro. It ain't that fucking deep, nor are you as clever as you dumbass thinks you are. Darren said, hey Craig, loving the channel. What do you think of playing Dom as a 6 and pushing Gravenberch further up the pitch? Does it help? And what I mean by that is, will he give us more protection in the 6 than Gravenberch is? Because I think Gravenberch is able to provide that protection, but his own words were that the manager had given him a bit more license to get forward. Maybe we need to rein in that license a little bit and have him just concentrating on doing the role of maybe creating from deep, but certainly breaking up, playing shield in the back. I'm not sure Dominic Szoboszlai's height either versus Gravenberch. Just curious on that off the top of my head. But I still feel it's not a natural position for Dom to be in. And look, I guess we could have said that about Gravenberch a while ago as well, but we've already done that transformation job with him. So, again, our problem doesn't seem to be scoring. Our problem, yes, we're less creative than we'd like to be, definitely. But, if we can keep more clean sheets, I dare to say we'd win more than we wouldn't. Ella, Francis, thank you. Appreciate you. So, David Sweet said, hi Craig, do you think Mo has something in his contract that he can't be dropped? Your thoughts please, mate. Hope you and the family are well. So this is something that I've been asked quite a bit. And look, the answer is I don't know. But I would hate to think that it is, David, because if that's in his contract, and again, I don't think it would be, but if it is, what does that say about the club? It would say that a player is more important. And I don't know any manager worth their salt who would agree to that. Who would have a player guaranteed to play every minute of every game unless they wanted to come off. It would just be detrimental. Because it undermines the manager. So, like I said, don't know what's in his contract, never seen it, but I would be astonished if a club like Liverpool were that beta, is that the right word? I mean, I wouldn't. If I was a coach and I'd heard about that, I'd lose me shit. Nor would I give a player a contract with that in it if I was the football club. So again, I think it's just one of those things that people wonder about because Arne doesn't seem to be subbing him when maybe sometimes he should. Kareem said when Stevie G had bad games or bad start to the season, the people say take him off. Kareem, what's the whataboutery got to do with that, mate? This is the type of stuff that winds me up because clearly you're a big Salah fan and that's cool, bro. That's absolutely fine. But whataboutery isn't a defence, mate. It's not an argument. What we have here are players, in Salah's case and in Konaté's case, who aren't performing well enough. What happened in the past with other players and other teams is irrelevant. We're talking about the here and now. And here and now, a player who we all love and we all fought his corner, want that contract that he deserved, isn't performing. So, whataboutery isn't going to add to the conversation, mate. It's just going to cause more divisions. Ultimately, let's talk about it. Let's see what we think is the path forward, and let's see what the best way of resolving it for the team is, But I do love that you stick up for a player. Of course I do. I want Liverpool fans sticking up for the players, but we need realism at times. And saying, well, did Gerrard get taken off back in... Well, look, Gerrard was dropped going over to the Bernabeu by Brendan Rodgers at one point, and still spoken about to this day as a ridiculous decision. Jason Curry said, Craig, we're too predictable. This is why teams know how to play We don't really change formations. We just add more attackers. In January, Gay, and then September we get Wharton and Collins. So the predictable thing is something I've definitely thought about as well. Because yesterday, from 5 minutes in, you could see what Palace wanted to do and what they were trying to do to get in behind us. And it took us probably until the second half to make the changes to kind of counter that. So do I think we're a little bit predictable? Yes, I do. I see it in patterns of play and the way we move through the lines. And it's not sharp or quick enough. And there's one more thing that I'd say. I think the reason we knock the ball side to side across the back is to protect the ball. And I think the reason they check inside so much is to protect the ball. And you do these things to try to stop being countered and to try to stop conceding. So the trade-off is a bit less risk going forward for a bit more defensive solidity at the back. But we're not seeing the defensive solidity. So the system and the way that he plays it, to me as a fan, looks like the trade-off hasn't been a trade-off that's worked. And I expected a player like Florian Wirtz to be floating around, finding pockets of space that the likes of Virgil or McAllister or Gravenberch can find, and he can quickly turn an attack and quickly go at defenders and cause chaos and havoc. Because teams are so well coached and structured these days that moments of madness or moments of havoc are your best way. Second balls, a little ricochet, something. Klopp was a master in the early days of causing these moments of havoc in games. And more often than not, our creativity in those moments outweighed the opposition. And we won a lot. I think Arne's gone too focused on keeping the ball and not focused on doing enough with it. You know, play it till you get the perfect pass. We heard about this quite a bit. Well, look at the possession stats against Palace. They had 27, 28% possession, but they had more shots than us in the game. So they were able to find moments by causing havoc for us, by getting forward in numbers, by taking chances. Even their passing accuracy stats were way down, something about 68, 70%. But they were doing the reason the passing stats were low was because they were taking more chances. They were trying to play more creatively. They were trying to be more aggressive in the final third. So that's why the passing accuracy was a bit lower. I don't give a shit if we have 89% if we lose the game. I'd rather have the 70% Palace had and win it. Right, where was I at? Sorry, I have a few more super chats to get through. This one, Nimrod Hurwitz said, I feel like under Slot, every game feels like a 50-50 game. Even last season, we mainly edged 2-1 wins. We also lack identity and fluidity in our possession game under him. So I come back to two different kind of styles of the way Jurgen played, particularly in his early days, versus Arne now, Nimrod. And under Jurgen, it used to be that we'd blow a team away. You could go out there and have a 30-minute spell, you'd be 3-0 up, and you could then look to see the game out and make changes 65-70. With Arne, and again, this is just one fan thinking out loud, because, look, I don't understand football in the same way Arne does. I don't understand football in the same way Klopp does. I understand it, I would think, well, but not that well. So whatever they're doing, there is a reason for it. But with Arne, it feels like we're trying to grind teams down and then beat them at the end, or wear them out and then find the moments. I'd rather blitz teams at the start, personally, and then, you know, put your foot in their throat. Play with a bit more freedom, expression. That's the way I see it at this moment in time. From the early Jurgen days into the Arne days, it's just that's the difference that stands out to me. Salah not tracking back will put huge pressure on Frimpong, who's not the greatest defender, said Blah. Also causes Ryan to drift wide, straining midfield. If Salah isn't tracking back, and again, we do know that's under instruction and that's part of the trade-off, you're right, it does cause issues elsewhere, which is why everybody else needs to be working their ass off to make sure that they do. What we've seen a lot with Salah lately is, it's like someone said yesterday he lost 5 out of 5 ground duels. I think it was the real Johnny Sin said it to me. That's shocking, if that's the case. Shocking. Because one thing we all say about Mo is that he's physically strong. His upper body strength is incredible. But he is going down a lot lately, and ref's not giving him stuff, and he's not making the necessary adjustments to make sure he does win those duels. So, whichever way you look at Mo's performances, it's underwhelming. They just are. Whatever metric you want to use to look at them. So yeah, what do? You have to make the tough call. And I would rather we did it midweek than again on Saturday, because maybe that is the kick up the arse. Trayvon said Adam Wharton and Grab double pivot needed. He's a very good player. He's one we're certainly looking at, and I think he's one that most of us, mate, would say, yes, please, if that option came down the line. So, interesting so far. We've got nearly 1,500 votes on it. We're asking, who should partner Virgil van Dijk on Tuesday? Canade or Gomez? If you haven't voted, please do take a second to do so. Nomad, firstly, thank you for your 26 months with us as a member, sir. Really appreciate you. I want Ryan playing in the 8, having a freedom in midfield, then bringing an anchor like Fabinho to strictly shield the backline. Genuine question, though, and I know this is a bit hypocritical of me because I always say to you, don't think in starting 11s. But if, in that scenario, let's say you brought in whoever you want as your DM, and you put Ryan forward, then we've got McAllister, Wirtz, Szoboszlai, Jones, the real, like, Endo's there, but they're the real options. That's a lot of players to keep having to rotate and move in to keep happy. So, in that scenario, do you sell a midfielder? Honest question. Like, if we bring in Adam Wharton, and you have Adam Wharton, you've got Gravenberch, do you sell Maka? I just can't see a way to keep everybody else there. Unless, again, we're starting to say, right, well, we put Szoboszlai at right back. Maybe we shoehorn Wirtz and try to get more out of him on the left side of attack. It just feels like we'd have too many bodies there. And that's before we look at Nioni coming through, Stefan Bajcetic and what happens with him. And like I said, Endo's there as well. Be interesting to see what people think in the chat. So, would like someone said sell Jones? I'd have no problem doing that, mate. You could say, well, you lose the Scouts' heartbeat of the team there, though. But of the players we've all listed, Jones would be the one that I think would make sense. But does he play enough from the start to think that it's going to happen? Alex said USA coming back. Mate, they won't. Even if they look like they are, they won't. There's no way that the European team aren't going to get enough points to at least retain it. And I had it on before it came on, and yes, I'd seen that they were turning the corner in a few games, but they're not coming back. Stargirl said, Slot has some blame. There is no balance in the team, but senior players have to look in the mirror. They couldn't do simple basic stuff, just awful. Absolutely, of course, the manager has to have some blame in this. But it's the fact we look so disjointed that's confusing, right? Yeah. I just think that's what concerns me the most, Lark. Sorry, I keep pausing because I'm trying to process a few thoughts. You know the way we often hear managers say, like Amarim, who is deluded, but will come out and say, well, look, we're doing the right things. The stats show we're unlucky in these areas. I'd like to know what that shows for us, or what Arna's thinking is, because I don't see any fluidity to what we're doing. I think we're hindering our own attacking ability by checking back all the time and slowing it down and giving teams a chance to reset. Abdullah said, makes no sense to sell Jones, the only scouts from the team. Let's be real, we arguably need more coming up. So that's pretty much what I said, mate. But if you were to play Wharton and Gravenberch in a double pivot, how are you going to keep Jones, McAllister, Endo, Soboslai, Wirtz happy? Or where are you going to give them enough minutes? I just don't see that there is enough to do that if you had Wharton, Gravenberch in a double pivot. That's just my take on it, though. But as a fan, would I be happy to have all those options? Of course. I'd love it. But I'd also love to figure out how the manager's going to keep that amount of midfielders happy. The hopeful guy said, why did we buy attacking fullbacks for a manager who defends with them? That's something that I'm confused by as well, mate. Like I said, I assumed the plan when we brought in Frimpong and Kirkes was that kind of PSG level of we'll attack the shit out of you, pin you in with our fullbacks being high up, smother you and not let you get out. And the only way you're going to get out is by lumping a long ball forward that our centre-back will deal with and we'll go again. So, ironically, we've heard people talk about Arteta playing with the handbrake on. I think Arnold's playing with the handbrake on a little bit as well, and we're caught in two minds, and we're not committing to the style I think he ultimately wants to play. Which, he goes on about that PSG team under Luis Enrique and gave them so much credit, and we have the personnel, I would say, to try to do that, so let's go to that. Aaron Picard said, first half to my eye looked like we had no width, like a 4-2-2-2. Was that just a failed experiment? A lack of width is something that I think I've bemoaned about quite a bit. Because it doesn't make the field as big. Like when you're playing a low block, and again, I still argue about whether Palace did or didn't yesterday, but to play a low block, you want to make the pitch as wide as possible because teams want to give you that wide area. And then it's up to you from that wide area to find a way to cause them problems. Other teams play low blocks, but Man City seem to always find a way to hammer teams like that to play a low block. So the whole point of bringing in the Wirtz of this world is that lock can be picked and we need to find a way to pick the lock. Where are we at? This one from Jordan Lawson. Hey Craig, I think Canade's heart isn't at Liverpool. I don't disagree because again, and I know I keep banging on about the same thing, but I've not once heard the man say he wants to stay. Not once. Might seem like I'm overreacting to that, but I think it's an important thing to say because then you're putting the onus back on the club to get it sorted for you. But he's not said it, and for me, that tells me enough that he sees his future somewhere else. David Robb, please convince me the Wirtz isn't the new Naby Keita. I don't think I should have to convince you, David, after 8 games, all of which he's been fit for, by the way, unlike Naby. It's going to take some players time. And football and the Premier League is littered with players who didn't do it in the first year, who've come on. Soboslai, an example. Robertson took 6 months before Jurgen started to trust him and play him. Fabinho, I think, was a similar story, if my memory's right. So, I see with Wirtz what's going wrong. Not quick enough, dwelling on the ball too much. And I feel like, and this might sound like a cop-out, but I feel like he's a little bit unlucky at times as well. Because there's been a few little bobbles of a ball or, a defender, good bit of defending, that had stopped him having the moment that I think would let him push on. First 2-3 games, I could see that he just wasn't up to the pace. And he wasn't yet ready to deal with the physicality along with that pace, and he needs to change things a little bit, and his thinking, needs to quicken up a bit. But if you think that he's going to become the new Naby Keita, I think you're doing him a huge disservice, personally. But I can understand that he hasn't done it yet. I can get that. But you can see the class in the guy. It's just, it needs to gel and click. And it will. I really, really feel it will. Right, so we have 1,650 votes, and 66% of you guys had said that you would go with Joe Gomez over Ibrahim Konate for Tuesday, and so would I, because you can't reward that shit performance with another start. Again, I don't know what message that sends if he just starts again. Naturalist said, the problem is not whether Canade's heart/mind is here or not. The bigger problem is we don't even have a good centre-back to sub him off. The club need to act on this. There's no competition for Canade. So, it's tough to judge on Joe Gomez because we've only seen him play one game from the start, and he wasn't great. But off history, we know what Joe's capable of, and that he is a decent centre-back. I think he's better a full-back, but he's a good centre-back. So I'd still rather take the chance with Joe, because I can at least get my head around that it could be a lack of repetition or minutes or rhythm for Joe. I don't really have an excuse for Konate other than his head is elsewhere. That's just my simplistic take on it, though. This one, Matty. Let's be real, Wharton starts over Jones every time. He does, but that wasn't the point I was trying to make, mate. My point was, if you have two deeper lying players, how are you going to keep McAllister, Jones, Soboslai and Wirtz happy for fighting for one position? Yes, maybe McAllister can drop in there to play the second deeper player at times, but I would say something has to give if we were to bring in a Wharton, and I don't know who that something is. I mean, if you moved on Endo, there's your space straight away in the midfield. So I would say do that more than anything else. So if you brought in Wharton, you'd have to let Endo go. Have I seen the Sky Germany interview with Wirtz? Yeah, I spoke about some quotes from it the other day on the stream, mate. The way he said, I think Aaron Briggs, our set piece coach, needs to be sacked. Well, I'm working off memory here on this one, but wasn't he just put into that position very recently from a different position? Again, if I'm wrong, I apologise, but I have a memory of Aaron Briggs just being put into the set piece coach role recently. I forgot Gakpo. I didn't, because I don't think of Gakpo as a midfielder. I think of him as a winger. So what I was talking about was the midfield options that we have, and I don't think of Gakpo as a midfielder. He's a left winger for me. So yeah, I know on FPL and stuff that's classed as a midfielder, but I'm talking about central midfielders. Play a diamond, then they can all play. So Jason Curry. But then you're still losing the position from somewhere if you play a diamond. So who else are you sacrificing? Because a diamond is what? 2 8s, a 10, and a number 6. So if you're playing 4 at the back and you're playing with that diamond, you've only got 2 other positions. So what do? Go with 2 centre forwards and remove the wingers? Use the fullbacks as wing backs to bomb on? Again, I'm not against it. I'm just trying to figure out what we're doing in the conversation. Do I play FPL? I do, just not very well, Nathan. Just not very well. I'm absolutely a mid-table merchant in FPL. As Connor said, we're not going to change our entire system mid-season either. I think we'll have to do something, though. He has to. I think just let the fullbacks have that freedom to get forward more is one answer to me, and let's actually not halfway house it and really try to press teams in and work from the front, defend from the front, and pressurise the shit out of them with the only way they have to either play through that press and best of luck or to go long. Stargirl said Mo is not going to be tracking back, then we shouldn't be playing 4-3-3. Either have Frimpong Dom on the right wing, push Mo up, front with Isak 4-4-2. I understand the sentiment there, and I wouldn't be against it. But again, we're talking about tweaking a system here, and we haven't seen a willingness from the manager yet to do that. Well, a little bit. We did go midweek 4-4-2 until we had a red card, and then we went 4-4-1. Yeah. Look, for me, like I said, my team coming up for Galatasaray, I would be putting Frimpong in the right wing for two reasons. Again, to make a point to Mo, and secondly, to see how it looks and what the balance is like looking ahead to the AFCON. I'd rather try it in the Champions League away from home or something than in the Premier League. Because at least there's wiggle room in the Champions League. You know, the odds of us not getting through to the knockout phases are pretty non-existent, if we're being honest. But we don't have as much wiggle room in the Premier League yet with the way it's shaping up. There was one more poll I wanted to ask. I can't think of it, so I'll move on. Alan said leadership is an issue on the pitch. VVD, not a certain captain, and we need to stop this Mourinho-like percentage football, inverted wingers cutting in rather than attacking fullbacks and switching the pitch. Look, I'm all for being more attacking, mate. I'm all for it. I just don't want the halfway house version of PSG system. You either play it and you play it with the intent of causing problems and high energy. I think the halfway house shit is just suiting nothing. It's not giving us defensive solidity, and it's not giving us enough pressure from the front in attack to really pen teams in. You know, watching that PSG team in full flow against us, not many teams were able to do that to us. And Palace did it for 45 at times yesterday. But that PSG team over the course of, 180 plus minutes, that was a real eye-opener of that system played well with the right personnel, done right, can cause huge problems. And we have the personnel to do it. I just don't think the manager's committing to it yet. Whitehammer. Craig, I said this in the summer, and I'll say I can't understand the players we bought, not because of their talent, but because of the positions they play. It's all square pegs, and it's going to show, I guarantee it will. I can understand them, as I tried to explain a moment ago, with the fullbacks being ones that are more wing backs that can bomb forward, holding width, being high up the pitch. The two centre forwards we bought, again, I can totally understand. They're slightly different, so again, it gives us something different. Wirtz, I assume, is the one you're talking about more. And again, if his job is to be the natural number 10, then he needs to step up to do that job and find a way to make it work. So other than that, I can't really think of too much of who else you could be talking about or who else maybe was the wrong type of player. Like, we were never going to find another Trent. So he had to go and bring in a right back who has attributes. And I think between Bradley and Frimpong, you can almost cover the two. But the Dom experiment is a really interesting one, that right back. It really is. The real Johnny Sin said, Craig, it pees me off. Why do we think we're too cool to be doing long throws? Especially yesterday, we went back to the halfway line. I said that, mate. Look at how Palace won that game. Throw in, late in the game, 15 yards, 10 yards from our corner flag, and they went long throw, caused havoc, won the game. We have a similar situation, the one you're talking about, and we go back to our own half. That is a fucking joke. To have an opportunity to get one into the box, bring your centre-backs up, cause mayhem, and at least try to do something. No. We went backwards. We were negative. And there was another one on the right-hand side where Frimpong had a throw in, and I swear it was 15 seconds before it was a Liverpool player within 20 yards of him. Another gripe I have is we're the worst team at heading a ball I've ever seen. We can head it, we can win headers, but we can't find a player with them. It's all just head it into a random area. And these too cool for school bullshit clearances. Yesterday, Milos Kerke should have put his right foot through that ball and hoofed it long up the field. Not turn around on his left and hook it out for a throw-in. Same with Virgil at times as well. There's this attitude of, well, I'll put it out for a corner or I'll put it out for a throw and we'll reset. You know, you're too good for that. Get it. Do something with it. If we're supposed to have ball playing full centre-backs, then let them play with the ball. There's too much safety first stuff, and it winds me up with the calibre of players we have. Trent put balls into the box. Who does that now? Nobody. And one of the beauties of what Trent did was he did it early. So when you're putting crosses into the box, you want two things. You either want it early so the defence can't set, or you want to get to the byline, you want to put it in towards the penalty area to give people a chance to fight for something or win a second ball. And what we're doing is tracking, cutting inside and putting a curler in towards the goalkeeper, and more often than not, it's either being overhit and going out at the far post, or it's going straight in and the defender or the keeper is clearing it easily. It doesn't suit us, so I agree. Either get somebody who plays them crosses early, in behind, to give Ekitike and Isak a chance to get in off the shoulder of the defender, or get to the byline and drill it low across. That Palace clearly showed we rely on Ekitike. It can't go on like this. We certainly missed Hugo Ekitike. It's one of the first things Connor said to me after the game yesterday. We always have a call after the game because I have to give him my scores for the player ratings and stuff. And it was one of the first things he said to me on the phone is Hugo Ekitike in that game could have made a big difference for us. And he could have, but you know, the reason he wasn't there was down to him and him alone. Mike said, Salah taking free kicks when we have better options is confusing. Not trying to go hard on the club legend, but Slot needs to stop that. So, I'm a big believer in a right footer taking a free kick when it's slightly to the left, and a left footer taking a free kick when it's slightly to the right, because I think it's the natural environment for a left or a right footer to be in to take those free kicks. And in my mind, I was in no doubt that free kick that you're talking about was 100% a right-footed free kick taker's free kick. And if you see where Dean Henderson stood, it was begging a curling shot away from the keeper in. Salah, left footer, to try to do that, has to start it out wide and come in, giving the goalkeeper more time to get across. And the fact that he didn't even test the keeper and went straight into the wall, not like the wall jumped really high and it clipped their head, he drilled it into the chest area. It was just wrong. And again, has he ever scored a free kick? Not a knock, a genuine question. Where with Szoboszlai, we know what he can do. And another question, I guess, is why wasn't Wirtz allowed to stand over that and have a look at it? I don't want Mo taking a free kick. I'm already 50-50 on whether I want him taking a penalty. I know I don't want him taking a free kick. Unless it's very clearly a left-footed side and they think that that's the way. That's just my take on it all. But I said that in the game yesterday as well. Don't know why Mo took that free kick. Itachi said, if Wirtz should be a 10, if Wirtz should be 10, another of our midfield players should be benched. Currently, I don't see who is going to be. All three are better than Flo at the minute. I would agree. You know, if I was to rank our midfield right now in performances that we've seen so far this season, I would say Szoboszlai, Gravenberch, McAllister, Jones, Wirtz. That would be the running order for me if I was to rank them from what we've seen so far. And Maka shouldn't be down that low because he's a better player than we're seeing so far this season. Both Wirtz and Isak had a chance to score in front of the keeper. Yeah, I remember Wirtz as well. Sorry, I'm just trying to think of the Isak one. Oh, the Isak one is the one where he went into the penalty area, left side, 6-yard box. I think it was him being off balance. But he probably still should have finished it, and I feel like a sharp Isak would have finished it. Wirtz one is inexplicable. Like, honestly, put 1 yard anywhere side of the goalkeeper, that's a goal. And he won't get an easier chance to open his account for Liverpool than that one yesterday. You know, if you're a new player coming to a team wanting your first goal, you're almost dreaming about it to be something that easy. That you're thinking, right, just get any type of decent contact on this at either side of the keeper and you score. Whitehammer said, we don't play Verts type to lightweight. We don't play two strikers, so why break the bank for two? That will eventually be unhappy. Just watch, we need a fast winger. I'm so annoyed. Well, let's think back to other forwards, right? And let's talk about Diogo and Darwin. So we always had two centre forwards at the club. And if you look at the profiles of Diogo and Darwin, you can say that they're very different styles, but you would also say one important thing. And we had this conversation as Liverpool fans about Darwin quite a bit. Is he better off the left? And if you look at the two players we have now, in Ugo Ekitike and Isak, both of them are good centrally, but you could also see that both of them have and could come in off the left-hand side more. Isak, if you look at his heat map, prefers the left to the right. He doesn't go near the right, really, when he's making his movements a lot of the time. It's central or left. So I would disagree on this one, Whitehammer, because I think the plan is going to be to utilise one of them on the left on occasion. And I think with Ekitike, there is the ability there to do that. So a lot of what you said I agree with, but in this one I disagree with. Cal, appreciate you, mate, as well, and your membership, Cal, thank you. Said, can we handle truly being favourites this season? I mean, I can't answer that question for you, mate. You know, time will tell on that one. But we spoke about expectation when we had the summer we had. We spoke about the fact that there is no more plucky underdogs type shit. It's now, you're the favourites. You've got the players. Do it. You know, and we can't be Arsenal here. You know, we have to hold the performers and the non-performers to account, the manager to account. You know, Arnott got given the tools to go and dominate. And he said that was the plan. The plan was to compete and dominate across all the competitions and to create something special. Now, it's very early days in the season. And again, the facts of the matter are we've played 8, won 7, lost 1 across different competitions. But it's also, you know, we haven't been at our best yet. So we just need to see us clicking. And when we do that, hopefully we do live up to that tally of being the favourites, or that tag of being the favourites. Art797 said, if we don't rebuild our defence in January, then Arteta might have a shot at his first Premier League title. Look, mate, there is a realistic chance that we could go into this next international break not top of the league, having had a 5-point gap over Arsenal. Because nobody can sit here and say there isn't a chance we could lose against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. You know, there's equally as much a chance we can win the game, but either way, it's possible. So we nothing but a win will do. We have to make sure that we don't let Arsenal get their noses in front. Because if you look at their fixtures, they look like they're pretty winnable fixtures. And we have a tough trip to Stamford Bridge. If we can get through that, it's okay until we play Manchester City at the Etihad. So, yeah, look, I can tell you, as a fan, I will be seething if we go into the next international break and we're not top of the league. It would have been a nightmare situation, thrown away points. We built a lead, 5 over Arsenal, 8 over City at one point. Now it's down to 2 over Arsenal and 5 over City. We've City away coming up at the end of November, I think it is. So we can't give Arsenal any more encouragement. This one. The fact we don't know which fullbacks are better, both sides, is because they're all average now. Also, us crying for Chiesa shows my point on what we needed another winger. We know Chiesa is poor, but we have no one else. So, lots to unpack there. And I suppose I better bring up your next one as well in the context where you say, sorry, but I'm fuming with the whole thing. So, to go back to this one, mate. Kirkes is settling in. So, let's be fair about that. So, we know his future is for him to be the fullback, but he's settling in and we've seen a mixed bag from him. You're right about on the right side. We don't know which fullback's the better fullback in Frimpong and Bradley. and we don't know which one's going to suit the system better. I'll give you that one. That's more than fair. But the Chiesa stuff, I think, is a little bit harsh on him, because what more can he do with the few chances he's had this season than score 2 and look like he gives a shit, and also create 2 goals midweek? So I would argue that he is good enough, and he just hasn't had the chances, and now he's starting to show. And most importantly as well, he wants to be here, and he's fighting to be here, and I love that trait in him. So I disagree with you on that part. Stargirl said, I would love Dom to play right mid, similar to how Stevie once played. He could ping balls into the box, run down the flanks, and defend. Dom has every attribute, like you've said. And I don't think Dom is, and I'm not saying you said he is, but Dom isn't our problem. Like, if anything, Dom is bailing us out here by maybe sorting out the right back situation when he needs to. You know, being able to play in a whole host of different positions. So, you know, I'm very grateful for Dom as it is, the way things stand. Mansour said, Craig, do you agree our strikers don't get many chances? Yes. That seems fair enough from what we've seen. But look, it's also, I think, fair to say that Hugo Ekitike has started very, very well. Other than the red card, I'm really happy with what we've seen from Hugo Ekitike. And Isak, look, we know the man's a goal scorer. But yeah, playing to their strengths is important as well, mate. I mean, it's nothing unfair about that. Saying you bring in these top quality centre backs, let's start giving them ammunition. When you're playing a low block, again, they're working off scraps. So you've got to either play early, try catch teams quickly, turn them over. But I would again expect this to improve as the season goes on. A lot of this is just based off the fact that we haven't clicked yet. And we're wondering when that will happen. And we're scared that it might not happen. And it might become a bit of a longer, disjointed season. Because the truth is, deep down, you know, I know, Arsenal fans know, Sky know, TNT Sport knows, the dogs on the street know, that if Liverpool click and play anywhere near the potential of the quality we have, it's game over. Arsenal wouldn't live with us. City wouldn't live with us. We would be, rightly, the Premier League winners. It's in our hands. We have the tools. We have the quality. We just need to make it work. That's easier said than done. But this is why Arna's in the big seat. You know, pressure's on. You got backed. Make it work. Got to make it work. And you got to show a style. And again, like, I think most of us feel like we don't know what that style is yet, but we know it's not as dominant as it should be with the caliber of players that we have. Like, how we haven't been able to blow a team away 3 or 4-0 yet with the star power we have is mind-boggling. You're not my twin, said McAllister, Salah, Gakpo, Wirtz not playing well. Throw Canada in there as well, mate, and I think I agree. McAllister, I have a bit more understanding for, because I do think it comes down to him chasing fitness and rhythm from a delayed summer. But again, you're still right in what you said. Jacko said, it's not a big difference of a start compared to last year, but I have to be honest, I didn't like the attitude vibes I'm getting from us this season. Points wise and tally wise, yeah. But again, what we're looking for here is the signs that it's coming together, isn't it? You know, we're looking for the rhythm. We're looking for, you know, patches of great play in 15, 20 minutes that can become 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, 90 minutes. And there isn't really an excuse that the manager hasn't had enough time with them either, because a lot of our transfer business was done early. And we did have enough time for these guys to settle in and play with Arna. So I just want to see an identity, and I want to see an improvement. That's it. The results have been really good up until yesterday. I don't think any of us can complain about that. But performances have to be better. Riot said, Craig, we've no pace going forwards. Have you noticed we don't counter like we used to? Case of Hugo should play together more. They'll get the ball forward quickly. Wirtz and Gakpo slows things down. So I think I agree with pretty much most of what you've said. Wirtz should be that speedy connection between midfield and attack with the speed of thought that he has and his ability to move quickly in possession. But we're not seeing it. The fullbacks have the pace, but they're not getting the license. And the cutting inside shit drives me insane. Whether it's from Gakpo, whether it's from Salah, whether it's from Rio, it doesn't matter who it is. Cutting inside, when we've worked hard to get into a position to threaten a team and check back inside and allow them to set back into their two lines of defence, pisses me off no end. Because it undoes all the good work you've done to create that advantage or to create that overload. And some of our counter-attacking football this year, the decision-making in the final moments haven't been great. Like, we've had a few 4-on-2s, 5-on-2s that we've somehow managed to fuck up. Whereas in the past, we'd have been ruthless. You know, with your Manes, your Salah, your Firminos, those counter-attacks were ending up in goals more often than not. Cal said, Craig, my concern, mate, is that we had a bumper window to have depth and options. Arna hooks Kirkes on a yellow, leaves Ibu all game playing badly and still won't sub Salah. Doesn't add up to me. So, all I can think is that Arna felt Ibu's experience would have helped him see through the game. And that Kirkes was perhaps a little bit more eager to please and a little bit more erratic than Canade. Now, I'm not saying that's right, by the way, because I think Canade is a shaky full stop. And I also think I'd like to have my players who are able to take a late yellow if they need to. What was the other part? Look, there's no doubt in my mind the manager has favourites. And all managers do. And I'm worried about the message it sends to players like Chiesa and others who are working hard to get their chances. And, you know, the quotes from Arna that I spoke about yesterday, they still haunt me reading them. Because it just comes across to me like, I don't want this kid. He said, on Chiesa, if he didn't do as well as he did against Southampton, we would probably not look at him as if he gets more playing time. But he did, so it's normal that leads to a bit more playing time. That just sounds to me like reluctantly I'm having to give this kid minutes. Whereas it should be, I love what I'm seeing. This lad has the hunger, desire, professionalism to go out there and make something happen. I want that. I want that. See, I'm an emotional person, so I like to see emotion out there on the pitch. I like to see it from the managers. I like to see it. I like to see that it matters to the players. And I know there are people who are calm, like Virgil, and it matters to them. I'm aware of that. You know, everyone doesn't have to wear their heart on their sleeve. But I don't think it's a bad thing when you've got a player like Chiesa who is grabbing the ball after he scores to want to get back to the halfway line to go again, and who isn't sulking when he's not put in the Champions League squad originally. What's the fucking point if you're not rewarding that? It's unfair if you're not rewarding that. And you're staying with a guy who might do something because of what he has done for years but isn't doing now. I don't like that. And if I was a player, I'd be fucking fuming if I wasn't getting a chance when others around me. You know, you're a senior pro on huge money for a reason. Because you set the example, you set the tone, and you lead by example. And Salah this season, and again, I'm not trying to say why, because I don't know, but he isn't doing the things that he used to do, and he isn't leading in the way he used to lead. And his reputation, you know, what's that worth to us without the performances? So I think it's time for him to get a wake-up call and have at least to be taken off if he's not having a great game at 60, 65. Or else we're just basically saying to the players who are not usual 11 players, well, you know, this squad is too good for anyone to play favourites. It should be based off performances because there's great players there. And if some aren't up to it at the minute, that's okay. You know, players go through peaks and drops in form, normal. But you got to reward the ones that are doing well. You've got to, or else it undermines the whole thing. Abdullah said, Chiesa understands what Liverpool is all about. Still, remember the opening day vlog. Salah will not hesitate to throw a tantrum if dropped, with all due respect to Salah. So, look, that's a hypothetical that we're dealing with there, but I'd also never expect a player to be happy they're dropped, but the manager shouldn't give a shit. If it's the right decision, that's all that should matter. So if a player has a strop, then go talk to the manager about it or be better. But ultimately, you play the foreign players. You have to. It's just common sense. So if somebody wants to have a strop, well, have your strop, but also be better. Be better and you'll be back in the team. You can't just coast through because it ends up costing all of us. And then it ends up costing Arna his job. So Arna has to make some tough decisions. That's why he gets paid the big bucks. He has to be brave because it's his legacy and it's his career. And if we don't win the league and we look miles off it, well, you know, how long is he going to be left in the job? Because he's been given a lot of backing. Backing that we've never really seen Jurgen get, for whatever reason. Arna's gotten it. He's delivered a league title. Now we're meant to push on and be that team. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to see which ones I've missed. This one. Liquid said, we dominated after Forest lost last season. Repeat. Klopp had no problem taking Salah off. Exactly. I don't know why Arna's not taking him off. All I can think of is that he has that whole he might have a moment thing. But you can't deal in hypotheticals. If the moments aren't coming and we're 8 games in, then odds are time to take him off and give somebody else a crack. Has Slot ever taken Salah off? I think I remember one. But even at that, I think it was like 88, the one I'm thinking of. It wasn't like it was 60 minutes in. Jacko said, I support a rugby team that did what Liverpool did this window. Bought a bunch of insane players and assembled a super squad, and it just never clicked. Hoping I don't see the same move play out here. So a lot of that, I think, comes down to excuse me, the attitude of the players you brought in, the hunger of them, and the mentality that's in the team. And complacency is a huge issue in sport. You can never have it at any level. You know, I think I like to use boxing as an example, right? The reason you've got your Canelos, your Mayweathers, or your Crawfords is they know the next guy's there waiting. They know that there are people hungry coming up who want what they have. And it's the real dogs, the real fucking alphas that say, not yet. I'm here. My time. I'm that fucking guy. And if you ever lose that, particularly in a sport like boxing, is dangerous, get the fuck out of there. Because it's your health on the line. You know, when you lose that desire, when you lose that hunger, the same thing that got you to the top, that's a problem in sport. And again, I'm not trying to say some people are or aren't there, but if that starts to creep in, that's a problem. It is a problem in any sport. Itachi said, Arna would rather lose than see Chiesa playing well and scoring. It doesn't fit his style of coaching. Arna has to wake up as well. So this is where, to me, I would like to see the media step up. So I'd like to see some journalists at the Liverpool press conferences say something like that. Arna, Chiesa's taken his chances recently. He looks like it matters to him. He's fought to stay to be here. He's doing well. He'd be due a start soon, Arna, wouldn't he? And if he says no, then say, well, why? He deserves it. that I don't think that's going to get a journalist in trouble. So I'd like to see a bit more of that as well. Because like I keep saying about any of the greats or any of the big people aren't included, nobody's above critiquing, nobody's above questioning, and nobody's above being held to account. And that includes the manager. But it's one game. I'm not so much worried about the fact we lost. I'm more worried about the fact that we haven't played well. Because winning's great. And like I said to you, I'd much like for the first 7 games where we'd won them all, I'd much rather have these conversations with you after a win if we didn't play well. But we lost yesterday and still didn't play well. So that's a concern. Disquiet Zenon said Chiesa was his first signing. Odd words from Slot might be found out this season. Even the treatment though this summer was weird, right? Didn't go to Hong Kong and Japan. And we were told by Romano at the time that it was because he was focusing on a move. So clearly at that point, he still wasn't in the manager's thinking. If the club were willing to leave him behind to sort out a move. I know there was some nonsense about an injury, but that was just nonsense. And then he wasn't included in the Champions League squad. And then he, of course, because of Leone's injury, has been included. But the most important thing here is that the dude is playing well. And you have to be rewarded for playing well and scoring. We don't beat Southampton without Chiesa. Isak doesn't open his Liverpool goal-scoring account without Chiesa's tenacity and his reading of that pass out from McCarthy that he intercepted. His unselfishness to give Ekitike the goal speaks volumes. That's a team player. Nobody is bigger than the team, right? Every manager will tell you that. Well, hello? This dude is putting the team first. He's not selfish. He could have easily taken that chance that he squared to Ekitike, and nobody would have begrudged him taking it on. But he didn't. He did the unselfish thing. He is a team player, and I fucking love it. And I love him. And I'm sure I'm not alone in that. Abdullah said 100% the Liverpool journalists need to wake up too. I'm sick of stupid questions about Isak. It bugs me a lot, mate. And I don't want to disrespect the journalists because I'm sure that they're good people and all, but they're there to hold people to account as well for the readership and for the fans. And I'm not saying they have to be toxic, but there's way too much pats on the back and niceties for me and not enough probing questions. I often look at American sports and I look at the journalism around it. And my God, watching the NFL, they don't give them softball questions. They get stuck in. They ask what the hell is happening here. This isn't good enough. What's going on? I think we could take a page or two from that book. LFC Spectre said maybe Chiesa isn't a slot signing. It was an opportunity signing by Hughes and Co. Maybe, but we've had time to sell him. So if Arne didn't want him, he should have been gone this summer. Right? If you don't want the player, you'd say to the club, look, I don't care if you have to take a loss on him. I don't want this guy. Move him on. Well, he's still here, so that didn't happen. So again, it just feels like it feels unfair. I keep coming back to that word because it does. It feels unfair that he's not getting rewarded for his performances. Thriller X said the journalists don't press enough with their questions. No, they don't. And there's 2 reasons for that. One, fear. Honestly, let's be fair. Fear. Because you get in the bad book, get the black mark against you, become persona non grata, well then you don't get those chances, do you? Maybe the press officer has a word with the newspaper and somebody else is suddenly sitting in there for that newspaper asking the questions. So there is that fear factor that it really pisses me off in football because I've suffered it. I suffer it all the time. I'm persona non grata because I speak out. And I know it. And you know it. It's not like the channel isn't known about or doesn't exist. But I call shit bluntly and I suffer for it. And I am aware of that. But my livelihood doesn't depend on Liverpool letting me into press conferences or giving me access to training camps, or so some of these guys have to strike that balance. But this is what I keep saying: football is too grimy and greasy and too afraid of transparency, and nobody should have a thin enough skin that questions should be off the table. Like, all this management of what you can and can't ask is absolute horseshit. Nothing should be off the table unless it's personal. So we wouldn't let our politicians not be asked tough questions or not answer them. You wouldn't be told you couldn't go and talk to your kid's teacher in school if you felt like something was wrong. So why is it that in this particular aspect, journalists aren't really allowed to do enough journalism around clubs? It's more a cheerleader experience a lot of the time. Most of the journalists that you see doing the tough stuff are ones that are maybe writing from afar, or maybe aren't in there at the press conferences, but are doing a piece on something. It's a big gripe of mine, and the really ironic thing for it all is that has allowed me to exist. Football clubs managing these situations so much have allowed fan channels to flourish because we have freedom. It is the thing that I'm most proud of with what we do here, is that nobody other than YouTube or breaking the law can stop me saying what I want to say. I don't have to answer to anybody. I don't have to bow down to anybody. I'm me, and that's how I'm always going to be. But journalists don't have that option. But I've said this for a long time as well. I really, really, really do feel that there is space for somebody to be that guy in the journalist world. That, all right, maybe you don't get to the press conferences, but there is space for somebody to really, really tell it like it is as a Liverpool-based journalist. I think there's a gap in the market for that person. I'm not saying you have to be toxic, but I am saying you don't have to blow smoke up their arse. I am saying you can hold people to account. And I am saying that you can put your finger on the temperature of a fan base and write about it. That is what I think we're missing. Anthony said they get with the in crowd and don't want to upset anybody and rub shoulders with them. Exactly. It's no accident as well how many journalists then go on to work at the clubs. Look back, if you have time, and look at journalists that now work with the club's press office or don't. There's one particular journalist, and I don't want to throw anybody under a bus, so I'm not going to start naming names because, you know, they like to cry arse about it a lot of the time. There's one particular journalist that has absolutely no fucking reason to have credentials to cover Liverpool Football Club. None. Not attached to a big outlet. Has no reason other than a pre-existing relationship. And that person knows that if they don't do the nice thing, that could very easily be removed like that. So therefore, that person needs to exist in a sphere where they have to defend the club. They have to then defend their defending of the club, and then they get really touchy about it. Because they know deep down when they put their head on the pillow that they're a yes man. Because they have to be a yes man. Because the power doesn't lie with them in that relationship. So who's the club's press officer now? Does anybody know who Liverpool's press officer is now? If I'm not mistaken, that press officer used to be a journalist for other outlets that covered Liverpool and now works as Liverpool's press officer, or one of their press officers. Why is that? Is that, well done, attaboy? You were always nice to us. Exactly, Ryan. Neil Jones. And I don't know Neil Jones. I've never had any dealings with the man. I'm sure he's lovely. But like I said, he covered the club. Did he cover them critically? I don't know. But I wouldn't say there was many times where he said, spend the money, John, or where's the money, John, or FSG aren't doing their bit, or anything like that. I would have doubts about that. So, yeah, those pre-existing relationships, like I said, and there are people who do work for the club, who used to work for the club, or who want to in the future to work for the club, all out there being nothing but an extension of the club's PR team, and then they get touchy when they get called on it. But they get touchy because they know there's truth to it. It's like when people have a go at me for being fat, and I get touchy about it because I know I'm fat and I hate that I'm fat. Or, because people know, I know that I'm fat and that it's my fault. So it bugs me. Same way people know that, yeah, you are an extension of the club's PR team. You just can't admit that to yourself. Anywho, let's keep going. Arteta will find a way to fuck it up. I'm not worried. Something feels, if you take Arteta out of the equation, those Arsenal players feel like they think it's their time. Like that result today at Newcastle was big. Because we do that. United did that in the past. City would have done that. And that's a step forward for Arsenal, that they did that they did turn that around. And fair play to them. Amir said, I'm a Galatasaray fan. We look forward to seeing you. Our passionate fans are looking forward to a great competitive match. Let's all enjoy the moment together. I wish you the best of luck. Thank you, sir. Amir, very kind of you, mate. I've said this, I'm not sure, Amir, if you watch our channel much, but I'm a huge advocate for Turkish football fans, mate. I think you're amazing. And I've no doubt the atmosphere is going to be very hostile in a good way. I mean, backing your team. So, yeah, may the best team win, mate. And appreciate you dropping in. And best of luck to you guys as well. Tyler said, ignore the noise, Craig, man. I don't know what you mean, Tyler, about the noise. I'm only concerned about us. Like, when it gets out of your hands in a title race, that's when I get more concerned. Once it's in our own hands and we don't have to rely on anybody else, I'm happy. And right now, at this moment, it's in our hands. But I don't want it to slip out of our hands, and I don't want us to have to start to play catch up. Nick said Arsenal are going to win this title race. I think that's what you meant to say, Nick. I'm still a firm believer, Nick, that if we can get it right, we win it easily. And that sounds arrogant, but I really, really mean it. I think we have the players to do it, but we haven't yet found a way to get the best out of those players. So, yeah, I honestly think we're the favourites, deservedly so, but I can't deny that I'm worried that we're not gelling yet. We need to hurry up and move that process along. Craig Adams said it's way too early to be concerned about anything. I mean, I get where you're coming from, but isn't that what being a fan's about, Craig? The highs, the lows, the thought processes, the dreaming, the fear. This is what fans do, mate. And nobody's standing here or sitting here handing over the title. But 8 games in, I think it's fair to say we haven't seen a great performance yet. But results have been more than acceptable. We lost 1 game, 1-7. But you want to see performances as well, right? You want to see it coming together and evolving into Warner's team. Art797 said, did you notice how many opposition fans turned up in the comment section after our first slip up of the season? Yeah, exactly. And I always take that as a compliment, because they don't do that if they're not fearful or if they're not worried about us. So I always ironically take that as a compliment when they do come in, because it shows that all eyes are on us. But that's because we're the champions. It's our title to defend. Era and Proud said, I'm a proud Irish Arsenal fan. I wish other Arsenal fans would wake up and realise Arteta will never win anything as long as he's the manager. Liverpool and Slot will win as long as they can play properly or plan properly. So I agree with you. And I don't say that to hate on Arsenal. I agree with you for probably the same reason you think it. The players are good enough. He's been supported enough, but he's 5 years into not winning a big trophy. That is not acceptable. So, mate, I appreciate your honesty. I have nothing but respect for your club. If you win the league, like I've always said, I'll come on here and congratulate you sportingly because you've done it in the rules and the right way. But I don't think you will under Arteta because, like you, I think he's the problem with Arsenal, not the solution. Itachi said, Craig, if you now have the chance to ask Aaron the 3 questions, what will they be? Think wisely. I'd have to, as you said, think about it. I couldn't just sit here now and spout them off. Well, I guess the first question would be, explain your system to me. You know, can you explain to me what the perfect Arne Slot performance is? That would probably be the first one. Secondly, I'd ask the Salah Chiesa question, combined in one question. And third, I would probably ask how we're going to get the most out of Florian Wirtz and how he plans to utilise him and turn him into the potential Ballon d'Or winner. Off the top of my head, under the time constraints on here, that's kind of where I'd be thinking. Agree with Slot that Frimpong caused the second Crystal Palace goal. I can't remember, dude. Honestly, I can't remember anything other than the Kirkes swinging the left foot to put the ball out for a throw. And then after that, I mean, I'm guessing he's saying that Frimpong was out of position when the flick on came and that he should have been closer to his man at the far post. But I'd have to watch it back. And I'd always say that, yeah, look, Arne would know what he's looking at more than me or you or anyone. Like, he's the professional in this scenario. So if he says he thinks X or Y is a fault, I'm sure that there's a damn good reason for that. I just can't remember off the top of my head. If Slot doesn't fix the system... Oh, let me just get this up on screen. Sorry. Aryan, thank you, mate, said, if Slot doesn't fix the system, we are in trouble. It's certainly going to be worrying if he doesn't fix the system. You know, look, I rate Arne highly as a coach. I see some of the stuff written about him. I don't even know if it's from Liverpool fans or not, but I see some of the stuff about him being a fraud, and I'm like, nah, I'm sorry, that's bullshit. One of the things that I'm most impressed about with Arne is the in-game tweaks and the halftime changes. But I'd like to see those not have to necessarily be made as much and to get it right from the start. And I'd like to see us start quicker. Like, we did race into a 2-goal lead against Atletico Madrid in the Champions League, right? 6 minutes in, and we're 2-0 up. We should have beaten them 5-6-0. We should have absolutely put their foot in their throat and destroyed them after that start. But we didn't. This 2 goals up being pegged back stuff, even if we go on to win it, is a worry. Because why are we conceding? Twice. Jason said, Craig, do you see all the old players like Klopp style formation and all our new players 4-4-2? This is why it's not clicking. Again, look, Arne knows what he wants to do and how he wants to get about doing it. We just need to see that happening and see the fluidity. You know, we need to see that the players understand what they're being asked to do and that they're executing it. You're never going to win every game, but it is important that you play well. And I don't think we've played well other than maybe 15, 20-minute patches this season. Denzel said, I want Arne to stay for 100 years even if we lose the title this year. Really? I mean, I'm not in any way saying we should sack him if we lose the title this year, mate, but I'm certainly not sure that you've thought that through, because it's a pretty weird statement. You know, what if he didn't win that for 2 years, 3 years? I mean, honestly, not winning anything in one season with this squad is an underachievement, but it can happen. But if you're to do that 2 years in a row, that's bye-bye time. with the money that he's been given. It's a pretty unpopular opinion, said Lou Abdi, but I thought Wirtz was fine yesterday, especially in the second half. We were better in the second half as a team. I thought McAllister was grown into the game more before he was taken off a bit. I don't think Wirtz has been as bad as some people think he's been. But I can also understand that people feel a bit underwhelmed with what we've seen from him so far. Personally, though, I have no doubts about Florian Wirtz as a footballer. Like everybody else, I'm eager to see him playing well, but I've no doubt he'll get there. None whatsoever. Barry said, I give this team a pass this year, considering what happened during the summer. Change of players and the fact we won the league last year. Look, what happened in the summer was a heartbreaking experience, mate. Of course. But to give team a pass because of it, I think is the wrong way of thinking about it. What you would want to do, and I'm sure what they've tried to do, is to galvanise that, to use that pain and to make it into something great. To use the season to enhance the legacy of Diogo, to do it for Diogo, to do it in memory of Diogo. That's what I'm sure is the thought process and the way they're trying to go about it, is to turn that anguish and pain into something beautiful and something better. But like I said, easier said than done. And everybody as individuals will feel and deal with that loss in a different way. There is no correct way to grieve, and there is no correct length of time before you feel that grieving process has happened. It's a very, very individual thing. Right, I'm going to go, ladies and gentlemen. The preview video for the Galatasaray game is going to be out in about 15 minutes. I recorded it earlier on. I hope you understand where I've gone with the team I've gone with. I do try to explain it as I go through. Again, if you haven't entered a competition, we are picking the winner next Saturday after the Chelsea game. So if you'd like to be in with a chance to win that signed and framed Diogo Jota shirt with thanks to our friends at the Collector's Corner, get over to the Anfield Agenda Instagram, and all the details on how you can enter are there. Thank you all for dropping in tonight, and congratulations to Europe on the Ryder Cup. And I will see you wonderful people tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Much love. Bye-bye.